He wore scuffed safety boots and a faded gray uniform, the kind that couldn't hide years of grime. In one hand, a wet mop still dripping. He stood silently at the edge of the factory floor, right near the power panel, almost hidden in the shadows. The GravCore 9 line had been down for weeks. Every expert had tried. Every system rebooted. Still dead. In the middle of the room, a junior employee live-streamed the moment. The CEO was coming. Tension spiked. Doors opened. Dorian Blackwell, CEO of Ventronics, entered like he owned the silence. Perfect suit, golden cufflinks, voice sharp as his shoes. "If our best minds can't fix it," he said to the camera with a smile, "maybe our janitor can." A ripple of laughter ran across the engineers. He pointed directly at the boy. "You, mop boy, want to take a shot at it?" Heads turned. Some chuckled. Others smirked. The boy didn't blink. Dorian added, louder, for the audience, "Tell you what, kid, if you fix this, I'll resign. Right here, right now." Everyone froze. The boy moved. Slowly, he walked forward. The crowd parted without a word. No one knew his name. No one expected anything. He wasn't on payroll, just a quiet kid helping out an uncle. Just the janitor's nephew. But when he stepped toward that 6-ton machine, something in the room shifted. The laughter stopped. A few engineers shared nervous glances. One whispered, "He's not serious." "Right." Another shrugged, watching closely. The boy passed by a row of tool carts, eyes steady, hands relaxed. His footsteps echoed faintly, like the air itself held its breath. Dorian folded his arms, smug grin unchanged. "Well, we're all waiting," he said. But the boy didn't answer. He walked up to the GravCore, placed one hand lightly on the edge, and just stood there. For a second, then another, toward me to Warjam, the hum of distant machinery, the creak of someone shifting weight, the faint clatter of a dropped pen, all magnified. The silence wasn't empty. It was loaded. Someone in the back whispered, "What's he doing?" Someone else replied, "Listening? Maybe." He stood just inches from the GravCore 9 hand, still resting on the metal casing. The silence was thick now. Not just curious, but tense. From the corner, Marcus, his uncle, a maintenance worker, hurried forward, voice tight with concern. "He's just a kid doing some extra work. Please don't humiliate him." Dorian raised a hand without turning. "You relax. It's just a dead machine. Let the boy play hero. Maybe we'll get lucky." That drew another round of chuckles from the crowd. Someone near the control station whispered, "This is a joke." Right, Elias didn't look at anyone. His gaze remained on the machine. Marcus stepped closer, leaned toward him, and murmured, "If you're really going to try, do it right. Make them eat their words." The boy gave the faintest nod. As he moved, a younger engineer stepped in his path. "This isn't a science fair, kid," he said. "Back off before you mess something up." Elias didn't respond. He simply stepped sideways, calm, slipping past him with the same quiet defiance he walked in with. That small act pulled a hush from the crowd. Another engineer elbowed his colleague. "Seriously, who is this kid?" A few feet away, one of the senior female engineers shifted uncomfortably. "We shouldn't let this go on," she said quietly. Dorian caught it. "Are you afraid he'll embarrass us? Clara or you?" She didn't answer. Overhead, one of the warning lights flickered. A nearby tech muttered, "Coolant system shutting down. If he pulls the wrong lead, it's gonna fry half the sensors." Elias stepped up to the interface. The crowd leaned in. Someone at the back raised their phone higher. Recording. The machine's diagnostic screen blinked with static red lines. The boy stared at it, eyes narrowing slightly. One breath in, then another, so he dirt. And then he reached for the panel. Marcus, his uncle, a maintenance worker, hurried forward, voice tight with concern. "He's just a kid doing some extra work. Please don't humiliate him." Dorian raised an eyebrow, voice dipped with mockery. "Or are you afraid he'll make your whole team look bad?" The crowd chuckled again. Dorian took a slow step toward Marcus, lowering his voice but making sure it still carried. "Or maybe your family thinks genius runs in the blood. I still remember you dropping that control module last month." The panel was warm under Elias's palm, faintly vibrating. His fingers moved slowly across the edge, feeling for tension points, memory etched into touch. Someone scoffed. "He's stalling," came a voice from the left. Another joined. "Maybe he thinks he can fix it by osmosis." Elias crouched. Below the main interface, just behind a vent grill, He spotted the access bolts. He pulled a small multi-tool from his back pocket. A tech gasped. He brought tools seriously. Dorian leaned to his assistant, amused. Someone call legal. If he electrocutes himself, I want zero liability. But Elias was already at work. With steady, practiced hands, he loosened the panel's bolts. The cover dropped forward with a dull clank. Inside was a tangle of wires and sensors. He leaned closer. This wire. Sorry, so. It's backward, he muttered. A ripple ran through the onlookers. One of the engineers squinted. Which one? Tunia wasn't on. Elias didn't answer. He pointed to a red line crossed over a blue loop. It's reversing polarity during the handshake cycle. That's why it crashes at boot. Someone behind him said, that makes no sense. Does it, or neither are? The older tech who spoke earlier moved forward. Wait. He's right. Dorian's smile faltered. Elias reached in, unclipped the two wires, and began reversing the connection. The factory was still. Even the overhead fans seemed to pause. Noah's breathing was quiet but steady. Every movement was precise, not slow, not rushed. Like someone who had done this exact repair 100 times before. Someone whispered, he's not guessing. He knows. He pressed the reset button. Silence. Then a low hum. A flicker of lights. One green. Then another. The Gravcore 9 roared to life. The room froze. The Gravcore 9 roared louder. Gears locking into rhythm. Indicator lights turned from red to a full row of green. The massive conveyor belt shuddered once, then glided forward with mechanical precision. Gasps broke the silence. One technician dropped his tablet. Another backed away slightly, eyes wide. Phones rose higher now, recording in disbelief. Did that just work? Someone whispered. Clara, the senior engineer, took a step forward, eyes locked on the diagnostics. It's stable. That wasn't a lucky guess. Dorian forced a thin smile, clapping twice too loudly. Too sharp. Beginner's luck, he said. That's all it is. But no one laughed this time. Another engineer muttered, that wasn't luck. That was scary precise. Dorian glanced toward the camera crew, then back at Elias. Where'd you learn to do that, mop boy? Elias straightened, brushing his palms together. I didn't learn it here. Clara tilted her head. Who taught you? Elias paused, then said evenly, my father. Dorian raised an eyebrow. And who's your father, exactly? Elias looked him in the eye. Luther Raymond. The name dropped like a lead weight. Silence followed. Heads turned. Clara's expression changed, first shock, recognition, then disbelief. Luther Raymond, she echoed, as in Luther Systems. Dorian's lips parted slightly. The room tilted. From the far end of the factory, a heavy figure stepped through the doorway. A man in a wheelchair, broad shoulders, sharp eyes, and a presence that immediately reclaimed the room. Marcus exhaled sharply. He came. The man rolled forward slowly, the rubber wheels of his chair making the softest sound on the concrete floor. His posture was firm despite the chair, back straight, jaw set. There were no introductions. He didn't need any. Every senior engineer in the room had either worked under him, studied his blueprints, or read his patents. Luther Raymond wasn't just respected. He was legendary. Clara took a step back, her voice barely a whisper. That man, he invented the first autonomous failover bridge for manufacturing sink lines. Another engineer replied and walked away from everything after the accident. Luther's gaze never left Elias. He gave no nod, no signal, just watched. Dorian cleared his throat, tried to reclaim the moment. Mr. Raymond, Pontier, we didn't know. Sursforin, one ami no wasimans. Luther cut in, his voice deep, calm. You didn't ask. Elias turned back to the Gravcore. He tapped twice on the diagnostic screen. Still running hot, he muttered, more to himself than anyone else. Regulator loops unbalanced. Power's stable but not optimized. He crouched again, opened a smaller subpanel. Someone whispered, he's not done. Luther didn't smile, but the corner of his mouth lifted, just slightly. Elias adjusted a trim coil, flicked a toggle, and checked the cooling metrics. Within seconds, the red heat icon faded to green. Clara looked around. He just tuned it better than our lead team. A long pause. Then someone said what everyone was thinking. That kid's not just his son. He's his heir. The factory hadn't fully exhaled. Even with the machine humming steadily, the room felt like it was still holding its breath. Luther didn't speak. He turned his chair slightly, just enough to face Clara. Make sure this is logged. Every adjustment, he said quietly. Clara nodded, her voice barely audible. Already recording. Dorian straightened his tie, voice tight. Well, that was unexpected, but impressive, I admit. No one answered. Elias wiped his hands with a rag pulled from his back pocket. The calibration's still off. If you want consistent output, someone needs to rework the signal loop along the left side relay. Whoever installed it cut corners. A few heads turned toward the engineering lead. The man looked down. Luther's eyes never left his son. You still remember the triple check method? Elias nodded. Like you taught me, no assumption survives direct contact. That drew a small smile from a senior technician in the back. It was an old phrase, one that used to echo through R&D labs a decade ago. Then came the shift. Dorian's assistant rushed in, phone in hand. Sir, we have a problem. The internal stream went public. It's on 3 platforms already. Dorian's jaw tightened. Kill it. Too late. It's viral. Hashtag Janitor's son is trending. Luther looked directly at Dorian. Still think this was just luck. No answer. From the far wall, a technician muttered, you can fake degrees, but not instincts like that. And just like that, the narrative began to shift. Not because of the machine, because of who had just taken control of the room without ever needing to raise his voice. Within 20 minutes, screenshots of Elias crouched beside the Grav Core filled message boards. Clips circulated across tech forums with captions like, he fixed in 5 minutes what PhDs couldn't in 2 weeks. In the break room, someone read aloud a comment, find that kid and put him in charge. Clara lingered near the machine, eyes still on the screen. Quietly, she said to Elias, you should document everything and keep a copy. Things may move quickly from here. Meanwhile, in the upstairs boardroom, members of the executive committee began dialing in remotely. A PR manager whispered to Dorian, we can't spin this. People are watching the raw footage. The air shifted again. This time, not from tension, but from the weight of change about to hit the top floor. The sound of crickets filled the summer dusk, broken only by the clack of plastic on wood. 6-year-old Elias sat cross-legged on a worn rug, frowning at a disassembled toy car. Tiny fingers clutched the axle, trying to wedge it into place. Behind him, a deeper voice said gently, wrong angle, but you tried. That's what counts. He turned. A younger, healthier Luther. Raymond leaned on the workbench, arms folded, his face unreadable, but his eyes soft. Cut to years later, the floor was cold. Planks of old timber stained with machine oil. Elias, now 10, sat in a dimly lit workshop built behind their farmhouse. His legs stretched beneath a table cluttered with circuit boards and cracked casings. Luther, now in a wheelchair, rolled closer. He pointed at a simple green PCB in Elias's hands. Off by a pin and the whole thing burns. His voice was flat, but the stakes were never pretend. His hands trembled as he lifted a screwdriver. It slipped, clanged against the floor. Without a word, Elias picked it up and passed it back, his eyes never leaving the board. A beat. Good, Luther said. A silent montage followed Elias at different ages. Caught mid-moment at 10, handed a scorched microcontroller by Luther. At 13, elbow deep with his father under a rusted irrigation pump. At 15, tightening the housing on a directional light array, face lit with the glow of working LEDs. At 16, standing firm. It's faster if I route it this way, he argued. Luther didn't shout, just watched. A slow breath, then a nod, then prove it. In the shadows of that workshop, the legacy wasn't taught. It was earned. In a soundproof study tucked behind the farmhouse, Luther sat at a massive desk. Multiple monitors glowed in front of him, portfolio dashboards, patent registrations, R&D reports from multinational firms. His eyes scanned line after line of data. He clicked to expand a list holdings in 11 major tech companies. Confidential blueprints bearing his signature, a name no longer on public record, but present in every corner of innovation. He leaned back, spoke aloud though no one was there. The boy must not know. He has to stand on his own. Cut to a narrow, dust-lined hallway. At the far end, Elias's door glowed faintly with the light of his desk lamp. The clock read 2:14 a.m. Inside, Elias sat hunched over a pile of vintage schematics, fingers stained with ink. His eyes moved line by line, mapping the logic flow. His body swayed slightly, exhaustion creeping in. Wait, but he didn't stop. Back in the study, Luther watched from a live feed, silent, unmoving. His eyes glistened. He whispered to the screen, "Exactly like I was at 17. The scene froze on the boy's silhouette under the desk lamp. The past wasn't just memory. It was blueprint. And Elias had followed every line. Elias stood once more before the Grav-Core 9, the hum of its circuits still faint but uneven. He reached into his jacket and pulled out a slim multi-tool worn, familiar. He crouched beside the panel. The crowd watched in silence. Even the usual background noises, clinks, murmurs, footsteps had faded. The factory air seemed frozen. With practiced motion, Elias unscrewed the lower casing, revealing a cluster of ground relays. His fingers found two specific wires, green and black, and gently unhooked them. A hiss of breath escaped from someone nearby. "He's going in deeper." Clara moved closer, whispering, "He's not just fixing, he's tuning." Dorian, arms folded tight, let out a dry chuckle. "Let's all wait for the miracle, shall we?" No reply. Elias adjusted the grounding plate slightly to the left, recalibrating the resistance path, fingers moving with the calm of someone who'd done this dozens of times before. A faint spark crackled as he reconnected the wires, his eyes flicking to the voltmeter readout for confirmation. He exhaled slowly, then pressed the start sequence. The Grav-Core buzzed. A low tremor rippled through the reinforced floor, enough to make a few engineers glance at their feet. Above, the overhead lights dimmed for a beat, then came back brighter. The indicator panel blinked amber, green, green, before settling into a steady line of luminous emerald. A soft chime rang out. Fully operational. Gasps erupted. Phones lifted again, but no one spoke loudly. Clara placed a hand on her chest. Every parameter's perfect. One technician checked the thermal reading and mouthed, "Even the core temperature is better than spec." The room didn't cheer. It held the moment like glass too delicate to shatter. And then, just above the low hum of the machine, someone near the back said it aloud, barely louder than a breath. "It's, perfect." Silence still wrapped the factory floor like fog. A voice broke through, soft but firm. "It's not luck." Everyone turned. Clara, the senior engineer, stepped forward. Her voice trembled slightly, but her stance didn't. "He understands the system better than anyone in this room." Dorian's brow twitched. He tried to cut in. "We don't need a speech." But Clara didn't stop. "You cut me off 2 weeks ago in a review meeting for going off topic. You said diagnostics didn't need theory." She looked him dead in the eye. "You were wrong." Eyes widened. Someone in the back muttered, "Whoa." Dorian laughed stiffly, gesturing to the surrounding staff and the board reps who had just arrived. "I think what we're seeing here is the result of careful groundwork. This was a coordinated team effort." Elias turned, calm as ever. "Really?" He stepped to the console. "Then explain this." His fingers danced across the screen. 3 diagrams appeared highlighted in red. Relay 3 wired in reverse. Fuse 7 bypassed entirely. And someone left the auto reset loop unplugged. Gasps. Elias looked back at Dorian. "I saw all of that the moment I opened the panel. No one helped me." Clara folded her arms, lips twitching upward. Dorian's jaw worked soundlessly. And for the first time that morning, he had nothing to say. A low chime rang again from the Grav-Core. The main interface flared bright. "Green, wasiwicho, green henin on. All across. The cooling unit hummed in perfect cadence. The thermal monitors dropped to ideal range. For the first time in weeks, the system purred like it was born to work. A technician stepped back, hand covering her mouth. Another voice trembled out. "I ran those diagnostics 100 times. Never found that loop." Tears welled in the woman's eyes. "I thought I failed." "From the far end," another engineer whispered. "He just saved the quarter." Dorian took a step back. His face, usually flushed with smugness, was ashen. He turned toward Elias, voice brittle. "Where did you even learn this? Who trained you?" Elias stood tall, shoulders back, the air around him suddenly still. "I didn't learn this at any school," he said, "and certainly not here." He scanned the room, then added, calm but unshakable, "I'm the son of Luther Raymond." It hit like a silent detonation. People blinked, gasped. The air thinned. Near the monitors, someone stammered, "Luther Raymond, the mechanical genius. But he disappeared over 10 years ago." Another voice joined, gruff but reverent. An older engineer stepped into the light. "I worked with him years back." He studied Elias, nodding slowly. "You're not just his son. You're the next version." Sharper, faster. He looked around. He didn't just pass a torch. He built a better flame. The room said nothing more. Because there was nothing left to deny, Dorian's breath hitched. The flush on his face returned, but this time, not from pride, from panic. He turned sharply to the nearest board member, trying to compose himself. Clearly, this was a fortunate coincidence, but we still need to maintain chain of command. A voice interrupted from behind. Chain of what, Wim? Clara? Is something. Her arms were crossed. You dismissed every concern we raised for weeks. You called our diagnostics irrelevant. Dorian raised a hand, his voice sharpening. That's enough. We're not turning this into a rebellion. But the tide had turned. A junior tech stepped forward. He fixed in an hour what you failed to resolve in half a month. Another nodded. And without blueprints, just instinct, someone from HR whispered to a compliance officer. The live stream has hit over 4 million views. The older engineer stepped up again. If Luther Raymond trusted this kid to work beside him, maybe we should too. Whispers turned into murmurs. Murmurs into quiet agreement. Dorian looked around and for the first time realized he was alone in a room full of people. The hum of the grav core behind them grew steadier, stronger as if echoing the shift in the room. A new voice broke the silence. It belonged to another engineer one rarely noticed, always in the background. I've worked here 14 years, never seen someone command a system like that, and I've never seen this team this unified. A woman from accounting added, he wasn't even supposed to be here today. Think about that. Elias didn't move. He simply watched. Clara looked to the board members, who now whispered among themselves, their eyes darting between Elias, the machine, and Dorian. Then the board chair cleared his throat. Effective immediately. We're freezing executive decisions until a full review, including yours, Mr. Blackwell. Dorian's mouth opened, but no sound came. The chair continued. And we'd like to speak to Elias. Privately, with his father, Luther wheeled forward, placing a firm hand on Elias's shoulder. No need for private rooms, he said calmly. Say it here. The chair nodded. We want to offer Elias a place on the Innovation Task Force. Co-lead, if he's willing. The room exhaled, a shift in gravity. Elias finally spoke. I'll do it, but only if I can pick my team. The chair smiled. That's exactly what we hoped you'd say. Just as the board chair finished speaking, the massive screen behind the grav core blinked to life. It was the internal live stream feed still running, still global. A tide of comments scrolled rapidly. Is that really Luther's son? I thought Luther Raymond died. Can someone confirm this is the same guy who created the old Stratus engine I interned on one of Luther's projects? His notes were genius. Clara stared, speechless. Even the tech team looked stunned. The views counter ticked upward by the hundreds every second. One of the board members leaned into the mic. Blackwell, you mocked the son of the man whose tech built this company's foundation? Dorian tried to smile. It came out more like a wince. Let's not rush to conclusions. I wasn't aware a junior assistant approached and whispered. Dorian's eyes darted to his phone. The assistant added softly, PR is in meltdown. Hashtag Elias Raymond just hit trending 1 in 5 countries. He swallowed hard. Do we know who started it? The assistant looked down. It was Clara. Dorian blinked, then slowly turned to her. She didn't look away. Another board member stood. Perhaps it's time to reevaluate who's really steering this company. Chairs shifted. Several executives nodded. Dorian's hands curled behind his back, knuckles whitening. Marcus walked up, pulling Elias into a hug. Your father would be proud, kid. Elias didn't smile. I think he's watching. The boardroom light dimmed slightly as more monitors lit up, showing real-time reactions from global branches. Executives from Singapore, Berlin, and Toronto all tuned in silently. A director from London leaned in, voice crisp. This is no longer an internal issue. We have clients asking if we're bringing Luther Raymond back. Another director added, we don't need Luther. We already have Elias. Dorian stiffened. He tried to reclaim the room. With respect, the board should not overcorrect based on a single event. A ripple of chuckles shut him down. Clara, for the first time in hours, smiled. A soft ping echoed from the master console. The grav core completed its second full diagnostic. All systems normal, all systems optimal. Elias looked over his shoulder. We could re-engineer the next-gen units based on this configuration. I already have ideas. A young engineer in the back raised a hand. Can I be on that team? Another voice. Then another. The momentum shifted. The room no longer revolved around Dorian. It gravitated toward Elias. One board member leaned toward the mic again. Mr. Blackwell, the board will convene at noon. Your presence is optional. The message was clear. Dorian gave a tight nod, turned, and walked out without a word. Luther remained by Elias's side, his expression unreadable, but the pride in his eyes unmistakable. In that moment, the past, the present, and the future aligned not through inheritance, but through earned recognition. 1 week later, the GravCore facility looked transformed, not just physically, but in spirit. Over the main entry to the R&D wing, a new plaque gleamed in brushed steel Elias Raymond Technical Bay, where reinvention begins. Inside, Elias stood at the center of a circle of engineers. Some senior, some brand new. He was walking them through a redesigned signal flow module. But it wasn't the diagram that held their attention. It was the way he explained it. Like he wasn't just teaching circuits, but showing how to think. At the edge of the room, a cluster of interns watched, wide-eyed. One leaned in and whispered, "I thought this internship was just spreadsheets." Another replied, "I didn't even know what half this stuff was. Now I want to build one." Elias turned to them without missing a beat. Working in tech isn't about obeying instructions. It's about understanding the system, all of it. From the corner, Luther watched. A few execs tried coaxing him forward. "We want you as a public advisor, Mr. Raymond. Maybe even co-chair." Luther shook his head, smile subtle. "He's the face now, not me." Meanwhile, across the room, an older man in a tan jacket stepped in, graying, cautious, but familiar to some. "Wasn't he let go under Dorian's tenure?" someone whispered. Clara stepped forward to greet him. Elias walked up behind her, envelope in hand. "I asked him to come back," Elias said simply. "The work needs more people who still believe in it." As the session wrapped up, more employees trickled into the newly named bay. Not just engineers, accountants, facility staff, even the cafeteria crew. One of them approached Elias hesitantly. A woman in her early 40s, neat clothes, a quiet voice. "I once applied here," she said, glancing around. "Didn't get past the front desk. They said I didn't have the degree." Elias looked at her, then at the tools she carried. "You still want in," she nodded. "Then apply again. We're building differently now. With me, passion weighs more than paperwork." She smiled, not out of politeness, but belief. From a nearby wall, Luther watched. He turned away quietly, wheeling toward the elevator. Elias caught the motion, gave a small nod. Later that evening, alone in the workshop, Elias stood before the GravCore again. Its hum felt different now, less machine, more heartbeat. He placed his palm on the panel, whispering more to himself than anyone else. This was never just about fixing things. It was about proving what we're worth. The lights pulsed gently. Outside, the facility buzzed, not with pressure, but with purpose. Elias stood quietly at the end of the tech briefing, eyes fixed on the new plaque above the bay doors. Elias Raymond, lead engineer. For a second, time rewound like a silent film. The sneers, the solo nights with old manuals. His father's last words echoing clear, "Don't ever beg for respect. Earn it until they can't ignore you." Miles away, in a factory no one notices. Another janitor's kid paused while mopping the floor. He stared at a tablet streaming Elias's story. In that gaze, something sparked half defiance, half hope. A caption appeared on screen. "This isn't just about machines. It's a reminder talent belongs everywhere. And every voice matters." Have you ever been underestimated? Drop a comment. Wish someone had stood up for you. Share this. And if stories like this resonate, hit subscribe, because every week someone forgotten might just become someone unforgettable. Quote, "Sometimes the one you mocked is the one rewriting your legacy." If you've witnessed injustice like this, what would you do? Subscribe to Unveiled Wealth, where kindness sparks redemption and silence breaks power.